that we know is that St. Stephen's as a church is a community that's built on love and prayers and grace, and they're going to come together. But we also know that this community of Vestavia, people of all different faiths, are coming together right now to pray, to send thoughts, to hope for healing for the people that are at the hospital, praying for the law enforcement officers that are here.
Now, as I said, there were church members who were out here, again, joining together with other people from other faiths in the parking lot to, just pray for this community. And I'm told that the pastor of this church is planning a church service at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. That is, of course, if they are able to get back into that building. And I'm not exactly sure what that plan is going to be if they are unable to get in. But that is the latest here in Vestavia Hills. Chastity Maxey, Fox 6 News on your side.
Chastity, thanks so much. So a bit of news there that St. Stephen's is hoping to gather inside that building perhaps as early as tomorrow morning, about 12 hours from now. We are just getting some new reaction from the pastor, the Reverend John Burris, who is the rector of St. Stephen's, has released a video statement, and it appears, we'll have that for you in just a moment. It looks like perhaps, Sarah, he may be one of those on this trip in Greece right now, where some folks are gathered. Again, not certain about that, but we expect to hear from that rector here in just a moment as our team coverage continues. Our Catherine Patterson working to get that for us downstairs in the first alert desk. But that'll be our first reaction from the leadership of St. Stephen's to this tragedy that's unfolded inside their building tonight. Three people shot, 2 have been killed, 1 at UAB for treatment after a lone shooter walked into this gathering and just began opening fire. We'll have that reaction for you coming up near the top of the hour.
Yeah, and the gathering that we believe it was, based on their website, was a potluck dinner.
Yeah.
That they have every third Thursday, and this was something that you just go in and have fun and fellowship.
Right.
I read on their Facebook, I keep saying Facebook, on their website, where they said, this is not going to be a Bible study, we're just going to fellowship. We're just going to get together and have fun. And just think about how that was just shattered by a lone gunman who came in and started shooting.
Again, that suspect is in custody tonight. You can be sure they're being interviewed by federal agents as well as Vestavia Hills police, who promise us more information tomorrow. We're getting new reporting on this by the minute. Your reaction, we'll have new video from the rector, the leader of St. Stephen's Church. His first comments on what unfolded inside his church building is coming up as our team coverage on this breaking story continues now into our 4th hour of covering this unfolding tragedy. But there is hope there as well. That's what we're here to bring you, all part of our team coverage that will continue in just a moment.
live and on your side. You're watching WBRC Fox 6 News at 10.
We begin tonight with more of our team coverage of the breaking news of tragedy at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Vestavia Hills, where a lone shooter walked in tonight at a small gathering and started shooting. It's
on Crosshaven Drive in Vestavia Hills, not far from Overton Road. We got a briefing from the captain in the Vestavia Hills Department earlier today. Our Lauren Harkson is live on the scene there, not far from where that happened. Lauren, what can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right, guys. We actually were able to move a little bit closer to the scene. St. Stephen's is right actually behind me. The sign there is showing that we're really near St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. So the latest information that we know, 2 people now are dead. 1 person is recovering, hopefully, in a UAB hospital right now. We were told that Vestavia Hills received an active shooter call around 6:22 p.m. this afternoon, and they ran here along with plenty of other agencies. We were told 1 lone shooter walked into the church during a church meeting and just began shooting. That suspect is now in custody, but we did receive an update from Captain Shane Ware with Vestavia Hills Police within the last 40 minutes. Go ahead and listen to what he had to say.
A lone suspect entered a small group church meeting and began shooting. 3 people were shot. 2 people are deceased. 1 person is being treated for an unknown injury at a local hospital. I would like to reiterate that the suspect is in custody. I would like to reiterate that there is no threat to the community at this time.
Now, that was just within the last 40 minutes. We're told the next update won't be until tomorrow morning, but of course you can count that WBRC Fox 6 will be there for that update. I was able to speak to a couple people who were here on scene that live just in the area. One of them had actually attended several services at St. Stephen's and just could not believe what happened, and it happening right here at home. For now, live in Cahaba Heights, Lauren Harkson, WBRC Fox 6 News, on your side.
Lauren, talking about that news conference from Captain Shane Ware, what he did not say was the identities of the victims. We assume that's because he is their department is starting to reach out to people who are related and loved ones and that sort of thing. That's
right. We know one of the victims is at UAB Hospital tonight getting some of the world's best medical treatment from folks who are sadly all too familiar with the effects of gun violence. Our Jen Horton is live there for us tonight outside the ER, where there are certainly still some very anxious folks inside. Jen.
That's right. As we know, 2 of those victims transported here tonight after that shooting at St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Cahaba Heights. 1 of those succumbed to their injuries tonight despite the medical care given. Another here still being treated for their injuries. It's difficult to assess exactly what doctors are working with because we don't know the ages of the victims or the extent of those injuries. But we do know UAB is the only level 1 trauma center in the state of Alabama. These incidents, albeit unthinkable, are something that they plan for around the clock. They're staffed for these 24/7, 7 days a week. No difference tonight when they got that call that these victims were headed here. You know, when we still weren't sure exactly how many victims that were involved, how many people may have been affected, we sort of fanned out to various hospitals across the area, even hospitals that were closer to the shooting. It turns out they all were directed here to UAB. We can't expect to learn anything else about the victim here who's still surviving. They said that everything else will go through the Vestavia Hills Police Department. That information clearly being kept under lock and key tonight until we get another update tomorrow. Reporting live in downtown Birmingham, Jennifer Horton, WBRC Fox 6 News, on your side.
Jennifer, thanks. How do you lead a church, your church, through a tragedy that unfolds senselessly inside the walls of your building? That is an unfortunate and unimaginable question tonight confronting the Reverend John Burris, who leads this church.
Let's go to our Catherine Patterson from the First Alert Desk, who has more from that angle. What can you tell us, Catherine?
Yeah, Sarah and Jonathan, this is really the first reaction we've gotten from leaders at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church tonight. Again, you're going to hear a message from Reverend John Burris. He's actually in Greece right now with other church members. They're on a pilgrimage. He posted a Facebook message saying he is asking for love, prayer, and support in the coming weeks and months and years. He says he is deeply moved by the support from people all over the country. Take a listen.
Friends, to family, dear, all the many people who love and know St. Stephen's, and all those who are part of our much larger community, reaching out in love and prayer to ask for your support tonight and in the coming weeks and months and years. Deeply moved by the radical support of love from many people reaching out from all over the country, our clergy, our first responders who are gathered now with families at St. Stephen's.
And you can hear him getting a bit choked up there. He says the coming days there will be announcements of ways to prayer and ways to gather. He says when he doesn't have words to say, he turns to words of prayer for a source of comfort. And he asks for continued prayers and for everyone to come together, to hold themselves together to get through this. Also, we're hearing some words of support from 16th Street Baptist Church here in Birmingham. The 16th Street Baptist Church is definitely praying for all of the families and friends of the St. Stephen's Episcopal Church impacted by this heinous and senseless act. The 16th Street Baptist Church is lifting you up in prayer and in love and in the days to come. Back to you guys.
Catherine, thanks again. It is heartbreaking to think that you are half a world away. We talked about this earlier, that we knew that some members of the church had just begun a pilgrimage to Greece to retrace the steps of the Apostle Paul through Acts in Athens and Corinth, and it turns out that the church leader among those. So can you imagine getting those first calls and text that something's going on inside your building and you cannot rush there to help folks because you are separated by an ocean?
Your heart just sinks for them and what they're going through. We also talked to people in the neighborhood who got the shock of their lives, understanding that there was gunfire in their communities. People in the neighborhood reaching out to our Lauren Harkson. Let's get a listen.
And we heard multiple sirens going in spurts of 3, 4, 5, and then the silence, and then 3, 4, 5. And he picked me up at work to go swimming, and we got behind the first ambulance that was heading towards Grandview. Correct. I attended Sunday evening services with my mother and stepfather several times, and it's a great church, great people, and it just breaks my heart that something like this would happen so close to home.
And that is the reaction so many folks are having tonight. Folks who knew someone who attends St. Stephen's, folks who just live in the area or are part of the greater Birmingham community, having this reaction of just shocked and stunning at what happened. Let's give you some idea of where this is in the Vestavia Hills area in Cahaba Heights. If you're joining us from around the country and around the world, or certainly in our area, if you're unfamiliar with this neck of the woods in Cahaba Heights, this is right off of 459, right at the intersection of Overton Road and Crosshaven Drive. Just up the road from that is where St. Stephen's Episcopal Church is sort of nestled in this neighborhood. The Publix is down there to your left. The the Cahaba Heights Baptist Church, is right there where that dot says Crosshaven Drive. That's that parking lot where we have had the media briefings tonight. Have not gotten any closer basically than that, Sarah, to the actual scene, and that intersection is still blocked off tonight at Overton and Crosshaven.
That's right. There are multiple agencies responding to this emergency and active shooter at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. They got the call at 6:22, and we're talking lots of folks from all over, local and federal agencies all responding, fire departments responding, Mountain Brook, Shelby County, Jefferson County, Hoover, FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and it goes on and on and on, because that's what happens when you have this kind of emergencies, that these departments will come together. But also, we talk about that camaraderie among first responders. There's also, we're seeing a camaraderie among the church community.
That's right. First responders rallied to the scene first to neutralize the threat and then to help the wounded. And there are so many wounded that we cannot see, wounds we cannot physically see. And that's what a prayer circle tonight began just a few blocks from here in the parking lot of the Publix, and has continued and moved around tonight. We'll show you those pictures in a second. That's that prayer circle that just spontaneously sort of erupted there. Folks holding hands tonight and praying for their neighbors, for their friends, and for even perfect strangers affected by this tonight. We know there's been some services going on online as well, and folks from all kinds of different faith communities reaching out, grabbing somebody's hand either in person or virtually to stop for a moment and think about our neighbors who have been so affected by this.
The call going out for everyone, please pray for this community.
Our team coverage will continue of this unfolding tragedy in just a moment. Welcome back. As we begin to spin forward and think about where this story goes from here, we're always looking at what is next. A couple of things coming up tomorrow, Sarah. First at 9:30, our next briefing from Vestavia Hills Police on the investigation. And now we learn from Chastity, perhaps a gathering at the church itself, maybe as early as 10.
Our Chastity Maxey getting that information. Tell us more, Chastity. What can you tell us?
Sarah and Jonathan, one of the parishioners, as they were walking through the neighborhood here at the Publix parking lot, they were telling me that there could be potentially a prayer service tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And that is, of course, if police enable them to come back into the building. It's unclear if they will do that if they are unable to get into the building. Now, this I'm actually right now on Overton Road, and the section behind me just by the Shell station there just opened, I would say, about 45 minutes ago to through traffic. Up until that point, there was a patrol car blocking that intersection. Still over on Cahaba, on the other road that's there, that's been in this area here, that area is still blocked right now. Now, as I said, that we have been in the Publix parking lot here in Vestavia Hills for a while now, and this was the center of where everybody was meeting, gathering, people, perfect strangers meeting, hugging, and then gathering for a prayer circle here. There were churches from all over the area coming together in the parking lot, joining hands and praying together, and just perfect strangers embracing, because of course this has been such a shock to this community. And of course, if there's any silver lining, like we've been saying all night, is that when tragedies like these happen, communities come together and they forget their differences and put all of that aside and come together. We did hear from the diocese earlier today. Kelly Hudlow was there on scene earlier today, came here to be with parishioners and pray for them, and she had this to say to everyone who's watching tonight.
something that you never expect to happen in your community. This happens in other places, and you just don't think it's going to happen here in the Birmingham area, and so it is shocking. But the one thing that we know is that St. Stephen's as a church is a community that's built on love and prayers and grace, and they're going to come together. But we also know that this community of Vestavia, people of all different faiths, are coming together right now to pray, to send thoughts, to hope for healing for the people that are at the hospital, praying for the law enforcement officers that are here.
Now the area has become a lot quieter now. Earlier we had people walking all over, people who were unable to get back into their apartment complexes and homes because the roads were blocked off. But now that those areas are starting to open up again, we're not seeing as many people walking around here. But of course, we will continue to keep you posted on anything that is happening here. But for now, Chastity Maxey, Fox 6 News, on your side.
Well, thanks, Chastity. Again, we're getting reaction from all different corners, certainly folks who are especially connected to this community, including the governor.
Let's get a look at her statement expressing her sorrow over what has happened. Governor Ivey saying, as we are learning about the shocking and tragic loss of a life at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Vestavia, we want to offer our prayers for the victim's family, the injured, and the entire church community. I am glad to hear the shooter is in custody. This should never happen in a church, in a store, in the city, or anywhere, end quote there from the governor. That statement issued before we learned that another person had died.
That's right, and Mayor Ashley Curry, the Vestavia Hills mayor, also reacting tonight with the tragic news that has broken this evening. I offer my heartfelt condolences to the victims of this evening's shooting at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. I would also like to offer thanks on behalf of myself and our Vestavia Hills residents to the first responders from all agencies who have worked tirelessly since this incident began. Mayor Curry himself, a former FBI agent who has responded to similar scenes perhaps before, and knows the work that lies ahead of the men and women in that department tonight, who will be working through the night, Sarah, to process a scene of unimaginable grief.
Yeah, and your heart goes out to that community, because the trauma that went on in that room, as we were talking about, they're going to have to be dealing with that for months and years to come. And how do you help them heal? Well, Reverend Hudlow said that she wanted everyone to pray.
And reclaiming the building for the purpose it was intended for, which was to gather, which is to have community, which is what they were doing tonight when this unfolded, and to worship. That is something that they may be doing as early as tomorrow. Again, if Chastity's reporting is correct, and all of this is obviously fluid, dependent upon how long this takes, and that church may still unfortunately be a crime scene in the morning, but at some point they want to get back into that building and reclaim the purpose that it was intended for, and there's a positivity to that.
In a way of saying evil will not win.
Right, and the sooner the better is their mindset. Obviously, it will be Friday tomorrow. We're a couple of days away from Sunday services. The Reverend is out of town. Will he be coming back from Greece? So much yet to unfold at that church, but obviously there is a spirit of trying to overcome and trying to move forward and reclaim, and that is certainly heartening to see.
Our continuing coverage, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Our team coverage continues of this unfolding news in Vestavia Hills, but there is other news, of course, to follow, and much of that affects you, and that's the weather.
Yeah, and weather has been a big story all this week. It's been really hot out there. What are you seeing now, Jill?
Yeah, very sweaty conditions continue at this hour, at least with the sundown is not as extreme, but we still have that heat advisory in effect until 7 p.m. at least tomorrow evening. And so tomorrow, remember, stay hydrated and limit outdoor exposure if you can. Tracking a monster of a storm right now. This is now just to the west of Atlanta, but it is drifting in our direction. So I just want folks in extreme East Alabama, want to give you that first alert. Just pay attention. Obviously, you're going to definitely see this lightning out in the distance. I mean, it is producing a ton of lightning. This could drift into East Alabama. Now, no model, of course, is picking up on it, but at least we do have the 1 hour out model, in-house model, so it does show maybe in a couple of hours. You're talking about Cleburne County. Perhaps you're going to see some stormy weather over towards Cherokee County, maybe Calhoun. We'll see if this holds together. Again, it's just a lone storm out there, but could be some hail and even some strong wind gusts that accompany that lone storm. Otherwise, we have clusters well south of us, so most of central Alabama is fine out there. The temperatures right now is 83 in Birmingham. Look down towards Alex City, even a little lone shower popping up. So our chance for a passing shower storm tonight is about 20%. Can't completely rule it out. Most areas will be dry though. 75 right now in Coleman, 83 meanwhile in Tuscaloosa. So that heat advisory continues through tomorrow evening. We're going to see a few storms, especially tomorrow afternoon, and then lowering humidity over the weekend. That will be our next big thing we're talking about. That hourly feel, I mean, look at that. You get past 9 o'clock in the morning and it's bad. You just don't even want to be outside. And we're going to be talking about that feel pretty rough going through all the afternoon hours tomorrow. We're going to be eventually seeing, though, some storms coming our way from north to south. So we'll give you a first alert. Could be a strong wind or hail producer. This may, again, bring in a little breeze to the area, but not everyone will see rain. Clearly, it's just kind of hit and miss. 30% coverage in the forecast. And again, a strong wind or hail producer can't be ruled out with anything that does develop just because it's so unstable outside. Next big thing is going to be that humidity dropping over the weekend, so that dry air would be filtering in from the northeast to the southwest, and we're going to be feeling great by the time we get towards Father's Day. Of course, we're going to see a high of 92 on Father's Day with the low humidity. It's still a little toasty on Saturday, and for Juneteenth, celebrating that, again, we'll go from those 90s actually feeling like low 90s. Now, the humidity will be returning next week. We will give you that first alert. We're back in the 90s for highs, maybe hitting the century mark, and muggy. So again, we get a little break. Enjoy it while we can. Again, you're going to start to notice that feel getting more comfortable Saturday and especially into Sunday.
All right, Jill, thanks very much. There is other news of a breaking variety tonight in our state, and that involves those 2 Alabamians missing somewhere in the Ukraine.
Our Catherine Patterson has that now from the First Alert Desk. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Sarah and Jonathan, like you said, we want to update you on some other breaking news that we've been following since yesterday. Those 2 missing men, the men from Alabama reported missing in Ukraine. They went to Ukraine to assist in the war against Russia. There on the left, that's Alexander Druki from Tuscaloosa. On the right, Andy Wynn. Well, a photo posted on Telegram, you see it right here, by a Russian blogger, appears to show Druki and Wynn with their hands tied behind their backs in a Russian military truck. Now, according to CNN, the State Department has not confirmed, though, whether this photo is real, but they do acknowledge that these 2 men are missing. So we've got statements from both of these men's families on our WBRC News app, and we will continue to cover this story as we get more information.
All right, Catherine, thanks very much. Again, an unfolding story we'll be watching closely in the next 24 hours as well.
We'll be right back. We're going to take a break.